Hello and welcome to this recorded version of the Getting the Most Out of Scopus workshop. For best results, please view this in full screen mode. This video will cover what Scopus is, accessing it from off-campus, developing searches, getting the full text of articles, staying current by setting up search alerts, viewing your Scopus author profile, and viewing metrics for articles, authors, and journals. Scopus is a multidisciplinary database with over 77 million records. It is especially strong in the sciences and engineering, though it has good coverage of social sciences, education, business, and other fields as well. About 2/3 of the records are for items published in the past 25 years or so, which means that there are over 20 million records from before 1996. Most of the records are for peer-reviewed journal articles, but there are also records for nearly 10 million conference papers, especially for engineering, and you will also see some records for book chapters and articles in trade publications. If you are off campus and trying to search Scopus, it is best to first log into the MSU Virtual Private Network, or VPN, that ITS provides. The VPN allows you to have the same access off campus as you would on campus. ITS provides easy to follow instructions on their website. You can get to the instructions by clicking on Databases on the library's homepage, and then scrolling down a little and clicking on the VPN link on the right. Right above there, you'll see that we have a link to Scopus. And note that the library provides access to other great databases that might be very useful to you. And if you contact a librarian, we can help you determine which other library databases might be useful. When searching databases like Scopus, there are some search tips that can help you get better results. These include using the Boolean operators, especially and or. And tells the database to look for both terms, and or tells the database to find either term. Also useful is truncation, which uses the asterisk or Shift-8 to search for any word that begins with those letters. So environment with the asterisk will look for the word environment, environmental, etc. Also, you can place words in quotation marks to search them as a phrase. Now, in Scopus, quotation marks will search the words as a loose phrase, and that allows you to use things like the truncation within the quotation marks. For an exact phrase search in Scopus, you would use the curly brackets. So this would find, for example here, rainforest, but you couldn't put the asterisk to find it like with or without the S. As a search example, we'll try to find studies that looked at the impact of wind turbines on birds. But the search techniques here can be used to find information about any topic. One thing to start with is choosing what words not to enter into the search. Including words like effect will often limit your results a great deal, so I would not want to include it as a search term. To start, we'll enter wind turbine in quotation marks to search it as a phrase, and I also want to use the asterisk to find it with or without the S. I'll click on Add Search Field and enter birds and click on Search. This gave me 552 results, and as you look through some of the results, you will probably see related terms that you can add to the search. One word that I found a lot was wind power. So I have added that to the first search box with or. This tells the database to find either one of those terms. And I now got over 200 more results. I also saw a lot of articles about bats, and I will add that to the second search box. So the database has to find one of the terms in the first search box, and it has to find one of the terms in the second search box, and any combination thereof. And I now have just over 1,000 results. As we've seen here, getting a good search usually takes some experimenting. Sometimes you may start out with too many results and you need to add some additional search terms to kind of narrow the results. Other times you may want to expand it by adding or. If you click on Add Date Range on the search page, you can limit the search by publication year, which can be especially useful if you have to go through a large number of results and you want to go through them maybe a few years at a time. So here you click on that, then you just choose the starting year and also choose the ending year that you want to include in that specific search. You can then edit the search years as needed to cover maybe groups of 5 years going backwards in time, again, if you have a lot of search results. By default, Scopus will look for your search terms in the article title, abstract, and keywords of the article. You can also limit to specific fields. For example, if I want to search for articles on a topic that were written by Mississippi State University authors, one way to do that is by clicking on Add a New Search Box and then change the drop-down menu to Affiliation. And you could then enter Mississippi State University as affiliation. Now, if you need a more complex search, the advanced document search may be useful. It is not intuitive, however, so you might want to ask a librarian for assistance with this, but we'd be glad to help you. We'll now take a look at the search results and how to get the full text. First, we'll scroll down and click on the title of this article, which is from the journal IET Radar, Sonar, and Navigation. And we'll look through the different parts of the record. We'll start at the top. The first thing I want to point out, the most useful thing here is the Find It link, which you should use first when trying to get the full text of the article, though sometimes View at Publisher may work when Find It does not. We'll look at the export and download options later. It's important to note that print, email, and save to PDF does not refer to the entire article, but just to the Scopus record for the article. So basically what you see on the page here. We'll now click on the Find It button. And in this case, it links us over directly to the article on the publisher's website. Moving down on the Scopus record, we see that article information that you would typically see in a citation, and we also see the author affiliation, so where the authors work. We then have the abstract or summary of the article, and you should be able to read the abstract and get a good idea of whether or not the article would be useful for you. We'll now click on Indexed Keywords. Authors usually provide a few keywords for their articles, but then Scopus provides additional indexed keywords. These can often give you good ideas for modifying your searches to get better results. We'll now look at metrics, which provides various ways to measure the impact that the article has, although none of them are without drawbacks. Plum X metrics that you see towards the bottom includes things like how many times the article may have been mentioned in social media or certain blogs and things like that. Scrolling down, you will often see information about who funded the study in the article, especially for more recent articles, they'll have a funding statement. And then you will see the reference list for the article. So even if you don't have the full text of the article in front of you, you can still look through the reference list and discover other useful resources. Back at the top on the right, you can see which articles have cited this article, and you can set up an alert to receive an email whenever a new article in Scopus cites this article. Below that, there are related documents that Scopus identified by looking at articles that share many of the same references as this article. You can also change this to find similar documents based on the names of authors or based on keywords. We'll now click on Back to Results. And on the reference list or results list here, we see that the results are sorted with the most recent one listed first. Sometimes you may find it useful to change this to sort in other ways. If you want to see which article has been cited the most, you can change the sorting to cited by highest. This will help you see which articles have been getting the most attention by other scholars. Perhaps most useful is sorting by relevance, which we'll do now. Scopus tries to bring to the top the articles that it thinks will be most useful based on the search terms that you entered. On the right, you'll still see how many times each result has been cited by other articles in Scopus. And you can click on that number to view which items in Scopus have cited the article. And the idea here is that if you find an article that is relevant to your research, then articles that cite that article might be useful as well. We'll now return to the results list, and we saw the Find It link when we looked at the full record, and in that case, Find It linked us over directly to the full text. Let's see another situation with the Find It button. In this case, the red X means that Find It could not link us over to directly to the full text. But we can click on the Search Library Catalog by ISSN link to see if this article from 1996 is in the library's print journal collection. In this case, the MSU library started subscribing to this journal in 1980, and basically it stopped getting it in print in 2009. So we can see here that this article that we're looking for, which was from 1995, does fall within the library's print journal collection. And so this will be located down on the first floor of Mitchell Memorial Library. And you could go downstairs and find the Journal of Solar Energy Engineering, then find the volume and the issue and the pages for this, and then either take pictures with your phone, or there are scanners on the second floor of the library by Access Services that you can use to make a PDF of it. Now, suppose when you did that, you saw that the article maybe the article is not in the library's print collection. We can still get it for you from another library by using the Interlibrary Loan option, which you see here on the Find It page. So for this, just log on with your MSU NetID and NetPassword. And if you are new to interlibrary loan, it will ask you to first complete your interlibrary loan profile. But after you create that profile once, then clicking on interlibrary loan from the Find It screen will take you to the request page, and most of the information needed will be filled out already. But you'll want to double check that it's okay. Here, for example, the last page was not included, so I would want to enter that or write something like end of article there to make sure you get the entire article and not just page 253. Before clicking on submit, just make sure everything's okay. And then when you click on submit, you will receive an email. Usually it's in a day or two when you request an article, and it will come from the library's Access Services Department when the article PDF is ready. You can then log into Interlibrary Loan, and then under electronically received articles, you'll see a link there to download the PDF, and it will be erased from this system in 30 days, but once you download the PDF, it's yours to keep. Now, if the article is in the library's print collection, you can still use the interlibrary loan request system to request that the library make a PDF for you, but note the limits here for different people. So if you're in a distance degree program, or you work for MSU outside of Oktibbeha County, there's no limit to how many you can request. Grad students and faculty and staff here on the main campus, there's a limit of 1,000 pages per fiscal year without charge. For undergraduates not in an online degree program, there is a 25 cents a page charge. But just remember that option is available. So one thing to remember about the Find It button, it does work best for journal articles and certain conference papers. Usually for books, it's best to look up the book title, not the book chapter, in the library's online catalog. If the library does not have the book you need, you can then request it through interlibrary loan. And the same applies to requesting a conference paper for which Find It or View It publisher does not get the full text. All right, we'll now go back to the results list in Scopus and see another way to look for the full text. As you go through the list, you can click on the box next to the record to mark it. You can also go to Page and then choose Select Page or Select All. In this case, I have selected the page of results and will now click on Download. If you haven't already done so, you will be asked to download the Scopus Document Download Manager, which works in Firefox and Chrome. And now Scopus will try to find the PDFs. This will work best if you are on campus or logged into the MSU VPN that was mentioned earlier. And basically it's looking through and seeing what journals the library has subscribed to, and if it finds that article within our subscriptions, it's going to attach the PDF. Note, however, that the download manager may not be able to get all of the PDFs that you could get by clicking on the Find It buttons. In this case, Scopus found PDFs for 14 of the journal results, the 20 results on this page. They were saved to my Downloads folder, and notice that the title of the article is actually in the name of the PDF, so that helps to get it, make it easy to see. Now, when you're using this download manager, if you try to do too many at one time, a lot of times it may kind of cut you off. So it's best to only try to do a handful at a time and even within one day, not to do too many at one time, because you might get cut off from the publishers if you try to download too many. All right, we'll now look at some ways to analyze results. A relatively new limiter is for open access articles, and some version of these articles are freely available to anyone, even if they are not part of an institution that subscribe to the journal. But it may not be the final published version of the article. So in general, you don't need to do anything with this open access limiter. The year limiter can be useful when going through a large number of results, as I mentioned before, and it can also help you see kind of like the trend and the number of publications on this topic over time. You can see which authors have the most articles within the results. Here it gives you the top 5, but you could click on View More to see more. And clicking on the arrow next to the name will give the affiliation of the author, as well as a list of their articles from the result list. You can also see which journals have the most articles from the result list, as well as which institutions and countries are most represented. Note, however, that some institutions may be listed twice due to variations in the way they were entered. Scopus also allows you to get an email when new content matching your search terms is added to the database, and you can also add results to lists that you create. These features require you to have a Scopus account, which you can sign up for free. To register, enter an email address and click on Continue. You should not use the sign in via your institution option because it does not work correctly. But once you click on Continue, you'll then, if you haven't registered, you'll be asked to use a password, to create a password, and it does not, and in fact should not be your MSU password for security reasons. To create an email alert, click on Set Alert right above the result list there, and you will be asked things like what you want to name the alert and how often you want to receive email alerts. And here we have an example of what an email alert looks like. You can click on the bell icon at the top to see the alerts that you have created and to manage them. So maybe you need to delete some you don't need anymore. You can do that there. To save items to a list or a folder, select the ones you want and then click on Add to List. We'll now click on View or Manage your list. To access this list at another time, click on Save List, then log in with your Scopus login, again, not your MSU login information. Click on Save This List. Then you can either give a name for this list or save the items to a list that you created before. And when you log out of Scopus and later log back in, you can click on List at the top to see the items that you added previously. Scopus also lets you view author profiles, and if you have at least 2 publications that you've written that are listed in Scopus, then you probably have a Scopus author profile already. To view profiles, click on Authors on the search page. Here you can enter the author's last name, first name, and institution. If you need to, you could click on Add Affiliation to search by institution if you want. You can also search by an ORCID number, which is a unique author identifier. So basically, you could change search using author name, change that drop-down menu to ORCID. But we're going to search, in this case, for me, and I'll click on Search. And there you see that ORCID option. And if you find that there's more than one record for you, which has happened to me before, you can click on the Request to Merge Authors link to ask Scopus to combine the results into one record for you. That will ensure that one page lists all of your publications that are in Scopus. Duplicate profiles can often occur when you move from one institution to another. So I'll click on my name, and here we have my information page. If you have an ORCID ID, you can click on Add It, and then articles you publish that are listed in Scopus should be automatically added to your Scopus record. Below that, it lists how many times I have in Scopus, and also how many items I have listed in Scopus, and also how many total citations those items have received. Scopus also lists my H-index, which currently is 4. This means that at least 4 of my articles have been cited at least 4 times. This is a way of measuring scholarly impact, though there are other ways to measure impact as well, and no single measure should be relied on. Back on the right, or right above there, kind of on the right, you can create an email alert so that you will get an email whenever any of your publications in Scopus gets cited by new items that are added to the database. Scrolling down, you can see my publications that are listed in Scopus. And if you see one that's maybe not yours, you can contact them and they can make the adjustment to your profile. So a final feature of Scopus that we'll look at is journal metrics. To find metrics on a journal, first click on Sources at the top. You can pull up a list of journals for a specific area, or change the drop-down menu to Title and then enter the name of a journal as we've done here. I'll now click on the journal title. There are various journal metrics that Scopus provides, some of which are alternatives to the impact factor. One of the primary ones Scopus uses is Cite Score, and they tell you how this is calculated and provide links to further explanation. If you just click on the little eye icon there, it will show you that. And also scrolling down, they'll also give you kind of how they calculate these scores right here as well. And notice they also show the ranking for this journal in the different categories that this journal is in. You can also compare specific journals by clicking on Compare Sources. You can compare up to 10 journals at a time with this. And so you can kind of see for the various years these different journal metrics, how the different journals have done over time. All right, so this brings this recorded workshop to a close. But remember, if you have questions about Scopus, you can email the MSU Libraries Research Instruction and Outreach Department at rio@library.msstate.edu, and we'll be glad to assist you. Thank you.